Gabay para sa tamang pagpili ngayong eleksyon, hatid namin sa inyo itong mga leksyon.
Sino ang dapat na magpatuloy sa pagbabagong nasimulan? Sino ang dapat na mailukno sa kapangyarihan?
Dapat may paninindigang ipagpatuloy ang laban kontra insurhensya at iligal na droga.
Matapang, ngunit may puso, may malasakit, handang magpatawad, tagapagtaguyod ng kapayapaan at pagkakaisa.
Handang isakripisyo ang meron siya, mapunan lang ang kakulangan ng iba. Ang pulso ng taong bayan, nasa sa kanya.
Mautak, madiskarte at alam ang saklaw ng batas. May konkretong solusyon sa bawat problema, lalo na sa gitna ng krisis at pandemya.
Kilalanin mo ang iyong iboboto. Aralin ang plataforma. Paano ito isa sa katuparan at patatagalin? Suriin ang track record.
Sawa na tayo sa puro forma at salita. Ang kailangan natin ang magpapatuloy sa pagbabagong natatamasa ng sambayan ng Pilipino.
May malakas na paninindigan sa tama, hindi magtataksil sa bayan at hindi tayo ipagpapalit sa kahit anuman.
Matapat at hindi magnanakaw, hindi sarili, kundi ang interes ng bayan ang inuuna.
May political will, totoo ang serbisyo at handang ibigay ang lahat. Matugunan lamang ang mga isyu na kinakaharap at kakaharapin pa ng bansa. Bilang botante, nasa atin ang responsibilidad na ihalal ang nararapat. Isa itong desisyon para sa nakararami kung kaya't pag-isipang mabuti.
Huwag magpadala sa kasikatan at sabi-sabi. Ikaw mismo ang kumilatis.
Tandaan, nakasalalay sa desisyon mo ang magiging kinabukasan ng bansa. Kaya, maging matalino.
Maliban sa totoo, dapat may karanasan at kapasidad na mamuno.
Hindi ka mabibili, kaya huwag kang magpapabayag. Bigyang dangan ang iyong boto.
Katuwang nyo ang Smni sa isang malinis at patas na eleksyon. Dahil dito, siguradong balitang totoo.
Ibibigay namin sa inyo mga impormasyong tama. Tuloy ang pagbabago kahit sa pagbabalita.
Sama-sama po tayo tungo sa bagong bansa. Piliin ang magpapatuloy sa mga programang nasimulan ng administrasyon.
Ituloy.
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 Ituloy. Ituloy. Ituloy. Ituloy.
Ituloy!
Ituloy.
Ituloy. Ituloy. Ituloy ang pagbabago.
Pagod ka na ba? Pahinga ka muna. Sige lang, hinga lang ng malalim. Palipasin muna ang dilim. Mag-ipon ka muna ng lakas. Dahil sasabak ka na naman bukas, ituloy mo lang ang laban. Kahit dahan-dahan, ituloy lang ang laban. Kahit mabagal, huwag kalimutang magdasal. Huwag kang susuko, huwag kang hihinto. Kita-kita tayo hanggang sa dulo. Kayang-kaya natin ito ipanalo.
Soundcheck. Kapag ako ang nanalo, sisiguraduhin kong may pagbabago.
Laki ako sa hirap, kaya naiintindihan ko kayo.
Sawa na tayo sa baluktot na pamamahala.
Pag ako binoto nyo, wala nang maghihirap.
Nagbabalik po ang The Deep Probe, the SMNI President. presidential candidates interview. Earlier, the candidate, Secretary Norberto Gonzales, and our panelists was having a very deep interview and discussion about how to make the Philippines a first world country. And so, before I interrupted, Professor Carlos had a question. So, Professor Carlos, I'll let you start.
Yeah, actually, I didn't want to be interrupted because when you're 75 like me, when you interrupt me, I forget, you know? So I have to write down what I was going to ask Bert earlier. So, Sec Bert, you said that I like the idea of getting, getting the ambassadors to identify the best universities. But it's not really the universities, it's really the best professors, and they can be anywhere. All right, you bring them here, and they design their syllabi and so on, and meet with our young people. But there is another thing that I'd like to point out as a local academic. Please make sure what you pay them is not 10 times my salary as a local academic.
Well, what will happen is that, really, you are correct. We cannot have that dichotomy, especially when it comes to salaries. I am hoping that by a certain period, we can say that our domestic teachers, professors, when it comes to knowledge and training, will be on par with those in the rest of the world. What I want to see is an interaction. It's not just we're saying, ay, huwag nung papuntahin dito yung mga yan. Anong tingin mo sa mga local? Mahina ba? Let's face it, it's not that they are mahina. It's just that they didn't have the kind of opportunity that those guys from abroad got. But we will try to put this, a mix. Hindi naman tayong papayag na forever and ever, mga foreigners lang ang magtuturo sa ating mga kabataan. I'm talking of an intermediate period. And yes, bibigay ko talaga sila ng 10 times the salary that you receive. But you will get the same amount. Kailangan ganun talaga ang appreciation natin ng teachers. Same salaries. Maybe even higher your local. But with one precondition to our local teachers and professors. Please be willing to study some more. Learn also what the world is offering us. Because yung mga professors natin, mga teachers natin, whether we like it or not, whether you like it or not, kayo susundin ng mga estudyante natin eh. What you give is what they will have. Kaya kailangan yung upgrading natin. As I'm saying, we upgrade. When we say we upgrade the quality of education and the kind of education that our young people will have, this also goes with the teachers and the professors. Lahat mag-aaral. Lahat. We need to build this. And don't tell me it will take too long. No. Sandali lang yan. Baka 3-5 years, nagsisimula ng mahalata na medyo gumaganda na yung kalidad ng ating pag-iisip dito sa Pilipinas.
Secretary, I want to shift a bit and talk about security and national defense. I mean, that's your strong suit given your background and the portfolios held in previous governments. I want to merge that with your dream of making the Philippines a first world country. But certainly there are some who may point out that there are certain industries that may need national protection because they are vital to security. Could you talk about that? How we balance those interests and what industries should be protected?
Well, I would like to deal first on the philosophy behind these industries. Number one, kasi nadinig ko kanina we are not going to have biases, when it comes to those engaged in building the nation. I will not distinguish between rich and poor. No, 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 no. Our industries, our big capitalists will be protected as usual. All that I want is to expand what we will call the engine of growth of our economy. We will have, of course, some kind of a difference in how we handle, for example, the capitalists, especially during this recovery period. What we will tell them is, we will request our big industries, our big capitalists, the only thing that we will ask from them, I will reach the kind of industries that we will have. Only that I said that during this time, I will request you that instead of distributing your gains in your business to distribute, for example, to your stockholders, I will ask them, please don't do that yet. I will ask you to expand your business instead. If you decide to expand, use your money for expansion, you will have incentives. If you will use it for, giving your money away to your stockholders, I might be forced to ask our government to tax it, so as to encourage expansion rather than, distributing. But we will have to open a fund. I will have to ask our experts here. I will have a very big fund to provide capital to our people. There are so many. I have encountered so many. Lalo ngayong pandemic, everybody wants a job. Everybody wants to work. Everybody wants to earn. And all kinds of businesses are sprouting everywhere. And the quality medyo patakbuhin. And I think it's the lack of capital that is lacking. Let's create a fund. I was telling our poor, when big industries are failing, they go to government, appeal for help, even ask for sovereign guarantee sometimes. But in the case of our poor, we have plenty of programs to provide them capital. But if you will check the statistics, capital is really not reaching them. Many of them are really not asking for the capital. And when you ask them, why are you not taking advantage of this capital being offered to our micro, macro, little, why are you not taking advantage of it? Sir, patay na ang negosyo, wala pa yung kapital. Too many requirements. Sabi ko nga, ano bang gusto nyo? And then, popular style ng mga Bombay. I'm not joking. Sabi ko, sino ang nag-attack ng Bombay? Why is it flourishing? The Bombay strategy. Kasi sir, sa Bombay, tiwala lang ang kailangan. Trust, which is very missing in our government. Why are we not trusting our ordinary people? Why? Why are we not trusting them? Okay, I said, kung hindi nagtitiwala sa inyo, ang mga mayayaman sa lipunan, yung gobyerno magtitiwala, we will create a fund, Bombay strategy. If we have to guarantee that fund, we should guarantee that. Eh sabi ko nga doon sa mga nagsasabi na maraming maliliit na negosyo, I just tell them, I will only require you two things. First, magbabayad kayo ng utang ha, kundi mapapahiya. Two, you must pay your taxes. You have to understand that taxes is not an obligation to government. Taxes is an investment. It's your investment na binibigay nyo sa gobyerno para gamitin ng gobyerno na pagandahin na kinabukasan. You must pay your taxes kasi mababa ng interest. Tapos hindi pa kayo magbabayad ng tax, eh di lugi. Babawi tayo sa tax. Di ba? Bawi tayo sa tax. Pero yung interest, let's be, ano ngayon, magkano mawawala sa ating kung mga 100 mga sari-sari store owners ang tumakbot hindi nagbayad? May mga malalaking negosyo na tumatakbo, di ba? Why? Let's trust our ordinary people. Let's give them the capital. Let's cut the red tape.
Secretary, I'm sure you've heard of the Sovereign Wealth Fund in Malaysia. And one of the controversies there was, of course, corruption. And I noticed that in your platform, you also take issue with corruption. So if we create such a large pool of equity, how do we protect it from being pilfered by those in power?
That's why I said, we go forward. We trust our ordinary people. Let's trust them. Let's see. Kasi nanonotice ko na, bakit yung mga Bombay walang tumatakbo eh. Everyday collection, talaga kitang-kita mo sa mga palengke yan. You say, and they are telling me, Secretary, buti na lang nandito ka. Pinagtitiwalaan mo kami. Kaming mga mahirap, marunong kaming magbayad. That is to me a very important, and let's not make, alam mo ako, in my observation, showing what is right and wrong is more important than punishments. No? When you deal with people, what is very important to a society is when authorities show that something is wrong. Ang tumakbo sa utang, masama. It's not necessarily punishing them. We lose lots and lots of money in many things. May mawalan tayo ng kaunti. Nakita naman natin yung paulit-ulit na pagsisikap ng mga kababayan natin. Their entrepreneurial spirit is far more important than the money. Let's build that kind of people.
Secretary Bert, may katanungan ako. I want to shoot two birds with one stone. Internet. Ako po isang franchise and telecom lawyer mula pang 1990. So matagal na po ako doon. Nag-upisa ako sa beepers or pagers. Ewan ko lang kung naalala nyo pa yun.
Yes, I have one.
Naalala nyo pa? Okay po. Ito no, sinabi nyo, kailangan ng first word is education. At kailangan palaguhin natin ang negosyo. Lalo ng pandemya, yung maliliit na negosyo, nagbenta through online, di ba?
Yes.
Kaya lang po, no? Ipak may data tayo ng correlation ng internet and education. Yung kabataan daw, yung tingin nila sa internet parang ere.
Yes.
Pag walang internet, hindi sila mabubuhay.
Yes.
At ang negosyo naman, no? Ay lumalago. May impact ang broadband speed. Negosyo. Impact po. May empirical data nung papakita. Ang increase ng internet speed, nagda-double, no, ay nagdadagdag ng 0.3 plus sa GDP. At ang penetration naman ang nagdagdag ng 1%. Ay mag-i-increase din, no? 10 point increase sa GDP. Ang katanungan ko po, no, ganito. Ano yun po, impact ng pera ang kinikita ng mga telcos. Halimbawa, yung PLDT ay kumita ng 23 billion in 9 months noong 2021. Ito naman ang Globe. Ang Globe po kumita ng 21.2 billion. Net income, parehong net income in 2021. Yet, ang internet natin ay mabagal.
I agree.
Grabe. Mayroon pa kaya strategies para iangat?
Unang-una,
ito po alam niyo education, naalala niyo po yung sa Bohol, sa taas ng plataforma, yung bata ginawa ng plataforma sa taas ng puno para makaaral ang bata online.
nakita ko yan kasi nung ako'y na-pandemic, doon ako nagtumira ako sa isang mountain village. Alam niyo ba ginagawa ng mga estudyante doon? Yan. Ako nga, umaakyat na rin ako sa puno ng mangga kasi para makakuha ng di ba? I understand what you're talking about. What we have to question, for example, kumuha tayo ng third telco. What is the basis for choosing this particular telco? Is it the efficiency that you're asking for? Palagay ko, yung lagay sa mga opisyal natin ang naging basis kung bakit napili ang telco na yan. Di ba? You were in Congress. Alam mo, nasa pagpapatakbo ng pamahalaan yan Kailangan piliin natin yung maayos na service provider na papasok sa Pilipinas. At then we can always tell yung nahandito na, please, kailangan review ng regulasyon ito, review ng kanilang mga lisensya. Alam mo kung minsan, Tiniteknika lang natin yung pag-review ng lisensya eh. We have to do our job. At tingin ko, doon natin titignan mabuti yan. We will not be against any big business in the Philippines. But conduct your business properly and well. Hindi tayo papayag dyan. Huwag tayong matakot na wala tayong pag-asa, corrupt tayo eh, yung sa gobyerno natin, ganun. Alam mo, when I was in government, I never dismissed a single employee in all the offices that I've been. No? I retain all. Pero inaayos mo kung saan sila fit. Doon mo inilalagay, inaayos mo lang yan. Hindi ka nagtatanggal. But, alam mo, ang bureaucracy natin, takot-takot ang nag-aral sa abroad dyan. Hindi natin ginagamit. Natatakot kasi ang nasa taas, siyang may diferensya. Kaya nga yung sinasabi mo na ganyan, I think we could have the fastest internet already.
Yung puwipitik.
Ayun eh. Hindi. Yung example. Alam mo, napansin ko to eh. Sa bagay, hindi pa kasiguro kayo buhay nung ako'y nandun kay Cory. No? Alam mo, nung kay Cory, alam naman natin na Cory is a very prayerful woman. Di ba? Nag-rosaryo, nagmimisa. Alam ba nangyari sa bureaucracy ng Pilipinas noong panahon ni Cory? Lahat ng opisina may statue ni Blessed Mother. Lahat ng politiko natutong magdasal. Bakit? Kasi yung presidente, madasalin eh. Yun, alam mo sa Pilipinas, napakalakas ng impluwensya ng Pangulo. Napakalakas ng impluwensya yung mga nakatataas. Kaya ito, I am thinking, ako, I am running for office, but I'm not running alone. I may not have a senatorial slate, I may not have a vice president, but I'm quietly building a group of people who will take to heart the art of governance, the honesty that it requires, the expertise that is necessary. Kaya kanina, nakita ko si Dr. Palafox, naakap ko eh. Tagal ko na hinahanap yan eh. Kasi yung mga experts natin dapat magsama-sama.
Ito po isang katanungan ko pa no. Alam niyo po yung frequency na binibigay sa mga telcos na ginagamit naman natin para sa ating internet. Limitado po yan. Halimbawa, 1 milyon lang ang kaya. Ino-overload nila 5 milyon. So ang sistema po, ang infrastruktura, bumabagal.
Yeah.
So kayo pa ba kung papalarin maging presidente, would you conduct an operational audit based on their application before the National Telecommunications Commission and tell them, hoy, 1 million lang ang kaya nyo. 1 million lang, period. Yung sobra, suli nyo na.
I will do something simpler. I will call you. I will call you. Alam mo, ganyan talaga eh. Alam mo, maganda sa presidente. No? Talagang kaya mo, alam mo, ang dami I was there eh. The best minds, experts, they come to you. You open your arms to these people. Welcome. Iyan sinasabi mo. Let's do it. Yung mga iniisip nating maayos, let's do them. Kaya ako, hindi ako masyadong expert dito sa itinatanong mo sa akin. But I'm very happy you're the one asking the question. Kasi I can already see the expertise behind the question. Very important. Pagtulong-tulungan natin to. I agree with you 1,000%. Kailangan pabilisin natin talaga.
Secretary Gonzales, ang itatanong ko po ay tungkol sa inyong anti-insurgency policy.
What? Yeah.
Ang nakalagay po kasi dito ay kung kayo ay magiging presidente, kayo ay open for peace talks pa. Kung ating pong matatandaan, dito, under the Duterte administration, I think this is the first administration that did this experiment of actually allowing members or recommended people of CPP and PA to actually govern. So for the first time in our history, we have, communists and capitalists, etc. in our government. I think even Yusek Badoy was lobbying for one of them to be part of our government. Pero this very generous offer to the CPP, NPA, NDF group actually failed, and we're back to the same game of actually continuing with their game of protracted war. So, is there still sense to continue peace talks, or should we just abandon this idea and then just go for total military victory over them?
It depends on the framework that we will be following. When I entered the peace process, first thing I noticed is that when you look at the agenda for discussion on the peace talks, it is tantamount to establishing a coalition government with the communists. And we know for a fact that coalition governance is just about 1 or 2 steps away from total control. Now, we know that in the scheme of things when you're dealing with the communists, and yet I saw this framework. The first thing I did was when they agreed on the third-party facilitators, I went to Norway. Fortunately, the one in government there and the Prime Minister is a drinking partner of mine during the old days. So I told him, can you tell your representative to the peace talks that this is coalition governance. We will never agree to a coalition governance wherein a particular party in the coalition arrived there by threatening the nation. You go there if you are elected. Sabi ko, they have to go through the process. What will our people think? What will our people think that engaging in violence, threatening government and the people is the right way? Because you become a member of the coalition of government without passing through an election? That cannot be. So I removed that. And the peace talks failed. Nagsara yung peace talks, nagalit yung kalaban. But that is just an example. No? There is something very fundamental that I'd like to keep insisting. When you do a peace talks, ang nagiging problema natin kasi, during the peace talks, ang galing sa propaganda ng komunista. Itong gobyerno natin pagkahina-hinang magpaliwanag. The peace talks actually is an opportunity for the two sides to explain their side. Dapat nananalo yung gobyerno, hindi nananalo yung komunista. Ako, I keep insisting, there is only one sentence that I want to remove from the strategy of the communists. And I can cite you many examples that it became very beneficial to the society when you give up this sentence. And what is this sentence? I-replace ko na lang, baka humaba. The gist of it is that fundamental to the strategy of the communists is their belief that they can only achieve state power by using arms, by engaging in armed struggle. Thus, right after the dictatorship in Spain, that you will probably study this, the labor movements of Spain talk to the communists because the communists is the strongest opposition to the dictatorship in Spain. But because of the pressure of their mass movements, the communists were convinced to lay down their weapons and participate democratically. This was the beginning when the Spanish society boomed, the economy of the society boomed. In Nicaragua.
Thank you, Secretary Gonzales. Unfortunately, we've reached 1 hour of our deep probe interview with you. So I'm constrained to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. But you can continue your story by including that in your closing remarks.
Okay. Am I going to give my closing remarks now?
Yes, Secretary.
I feel very sad because I'm just enjoying myself. I feel very sad. But the essentials. Number one, I want to thank Smni. Really. I was kulelat in the polls. But because of Smni, there's some there's some hope or some consuelo de bobo, nagba-viral ako because of SMNI, you know? That, number two, very important. Thank you, especially to our panelists for raising very good questions. It guided me in talking to our people. I want to report to you that I have been visiting the simplest of our people. They appreciate charter change. They are now talking about parliamentary system, autonomous regions. You know, I said, what success do I need? Isa na lang ang sinasabi ko sa kanila, you know, I excite them with all the programs, and towards the end, I will tell them, isa na lang ang problema natin, maliit lang, pag natalo ko, wala lahat yan. Sana po, maintindihan nyo yan. This is history. This is history. That for the first time, we try to explain to our people what the future is, what we can do to reach that future. This is the first time that I'm saying that politics, the political system, needs to be changed. And this is also the first time to have the courage to confront this. I don't know where this is coming from. They keep saying, Secretary, ang talino niyo po. Ang galing niyo po. Sana po kayo na lang ang maging number 2 ni BBM. Imagine that. Di ba? Paano yan? So, please, isipin niyo lang po ang kinabukasan. Yung mga sinabi ko sa inyo, hindi ko po inaangkin na galing sa kataliduhan ko yan. Ang tingin ko po nung ako'y nakipag-usap sa ating mga kababayan, yan po ang kanilang pinapangarap. They're dreaming of these changes. Sabi ko, be brave na ipaglaban nyo yung pangarap nyo. So it's not me. It's not really me. It's our dream. Salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Secretary Norberto Gonzales. 1 hour really went by quickly, but with Secretary Gonzales, we were able to cover so many issues, including switching to a parliamentary system of government, how to raise the standard of education in the Philippines, and how to also equalize the society. Now we're down to our last two candidates today. Sa ating pagbabalik, pakinggan naman natin ang dating tagapagsalita ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. He was also a former undersecretary at the Department of Foreign Affairs. Patas na lipunan, gobyernong nararamdaman at matatag na bayan. Yan ang magiging sandigan. Isabela, you may now sit down. And once again, it's time for our panelists to interview Secretary Abella.
Good afternoon, Secretary Abella, or is it good evening already?
Just about.
Yes, I was looking over the program of government which you had submitted, and a copy of which had been provided us.
It's not just o parang nawawala yung pagmamahal sa bayan. Kasi parang laging binababa ang pagka-Pilipino. Ito na notice ko lang, I just noticed it. Now, when I was working at DFA, I noticed that there was a difference between the attitudes of people coming from the Middle East, for example, working in the Middle East, and they would say, kabayan, kabayan, you know. Pero doon sa kabila, when, for example, you go to more Western countries, not necessarily Europe, but for example, North America, for example, there's a tendency to say, o kayong mga Pilipino, you know, kayong mga, kumbaga, iniiba niya yung sarili, no? Pero nakita ko rin niya na ang pagka-Pilipino natin, medyo talagang, even our jokes are down. So, siguro the thing that comes to mind is, would the Filipinos fight for the Philippines? Would we fight, for example, if there was some sort of invasion? You know, would we actually get up arms? And I suppose there would be, I don't know if, I'm not entirely sure if we would fight as a nation, as an entire nation, as compared to, let's say, fighting for, let's say, my property or my ethnic identity. So, kumbaga, ang mahalaga na, ang nakikita ko mahalaga na magkaroon tayo ng pagkakaintindi na tayo ay Pilipino at karapat-dapat tayo sa bayan at ang bayan ay karapat-dapat sa atin.
But sir, how will you... But sir, how will your government or your administration implement developing a confident national identity? We now have a clear idea of what it means, but how it will be implemented.
Okay. That is where I challenge the participation of civil society. And of course, and one aspect of that would be the National Volunteer Corps. I understand when some people say, let us have mandatory military service. Kasi that's supposed to build in a certain stamina, that's supposed to build in certain moral fiber. But the way I understand it is being in office for only 6 years. Maikli lang yun, we can only do so much. But we could plant the seeds for a confident national identity. Number one, encouraging civil society to stand up for what is right and what is wrong, and expose what is wrong. And the other one is for Filipinos, actually, the younger Filipinos, to really begin to love, begin to want to participate in nation building. For example, the National Volunteer Corps, we would like them to be parang ate, kuya sa next generation. For example, may na-miss tayo ng mga 2 years ng education, no? 2 years during the COVID-19 pandemic. So gusto natin silang pumunta doon sa field, sa mga komunidad, at pwede silang tumulong. Kung hindi man maituro lahat, at least teach mastery of reading, writing, arithmetic. Kasama yan. O kaya pagpapalago ng mga pagtatanim, pagtuturo ng konti skills, pagpapakita na pwede palang maging isang modelo. So, kumbaga, showing by example that it is possible to be a young, vibrant nationalist, a patriot. I'm sorry.
That was a very insightful observation you made, Secretary Abella, in regard to comparing overseas workers in the Middle East vis-a-vis workers in North America. Yes. And similar places. And what I see there in the insights that you have shared with us is that really those who are in North America are more likely, or in Britain for that matter, to act more British and more Americans. Yes. Than they are Filipinos.
Yes, yes.
And that means, therefore, that they in fact look down on those working in the Middle East and similar places. And that's a very insightful observation. So the Filipino-ness that you see is really there in the people who are working in the Middle East rather than those pretentious, idiotic people in the North American. And,
Professor Carlos, I think
She
I
takes
do
offense.
agree with you, but let me just add something. I think it's because in the Middle East, there's no possibility of becoming a citizen. But in Western countries, there is a possibility of actually becoming a citizen of the United States. Pero yun nga, sir, na, you know, you work...
Pero Sas, maybe it also has something to do with the kind of workers that you export, which are really, you know, for the dirty things that their own citizens would not want to do. But this is the only time that I've heard that kind of comparison, and it's really something so monumental, you know, and it tells you the divide. That's the reason why I really get peeved when I hear people in the United States, you know, preaching to us as if they suddenly have the answers to all the questions, and that's on account of the insightful observation that you had made.
Yes.
All right. I was reading through your 13-page program here, which was provided us, Secretary Abella, and I was looking for something so close to my heart, which is, of course, defense and security.
Yes.
So if I may, I'd like to repeat the question I asked Calyodi earlier. It's about the Balikatan, and are you happy about the ratcheting up of the Balikatan on Monday to, well,
I don't know.
4 times the number? And what is your take on the American-Australian consortium, which have, I think, signed a fairly long lease on Subic Bay?
Yes. Right. I don't know if I'm happy or I'm ecstatic about the whole thing, but it's something I believe that that is a necessary thing at this stage. For the plain and simple reason that we need to balance. You know, we have neither economic power nor military power, but we certainly can become an outpost for democracy.
In the meanwhile?
In the meanwhile, yeah. Until we're able to build our own strength, internal strength natin. Nakikita ko po yung wisdom na habang wala tayong lakas, ay dapat magpalakas tayo ng loob. Doon pumapasok yung independent, yung confident national identity. Kasi we only have so much time. Bago talaga tayo balingan, hindi natin alam anong mangyayari. So kailangan talaga may tibay tayo ng loob para mangyari man ang mangyari, kaya natin lumaban o kaya malupig man tayo, masasaktan sila at pagsisisihan nila ang kanilang mga attempts to to take over. Pero yung po katulad nun yung sinasabi yung Balikatan, it's a tactical move. We can hanggat sa makalikom tayo ng enough strength and enough confidence to be able to fight back as Filipinos and not as somebody else's alliance or ally. So ganun po.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And once again, time is going by so quickly. For now, we'll have to take a short break.
Yes.
Secretary Abella.
Yes, ma'am.
So stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back at the Deep Pro.
Gabay para sa tamang pagpili ngayong eleksyon, hatid namin sa inyo itong mga leksyon.
Sino ang dapat na magpatuloy sa pagbabagong nasimulan? Sino ang dapat na mailukno sa kapangyarihan?
Dapat may paninindigang ipagpatuloy ang laban kontra insurhensya at iligal na droga.
Matapang, ngunit may puso, may malasakit, handang magpatawad, tagapagtaguyod ng kapayapaan at pagkakaisa.
Handang isakripisyo ang meron siya, mapunan lang ang kakulangan ng iba. Ang pulso ng taong bayan, nasa sa kanya.
Mautak, madiskarte at alam ang saklaw ng batas. May konkretong solusyon sa bawat problema, lalo na sa gitna ng krisis at pandemya.
Kilalanin mo ang iyong iboboto. Aralin ang plataforma. Paano ito isa sa katuparan at patatagalin? Suriin ang track record.
Sawa na tayo sa puro forma at salita. Ang kailangan natin ang magpapatuloy sa pagbabagong natatamasa ng sambayan ng Pilipino.
May malakas na paninindigan sa tama, hindi magtataksil sa bayan at hindi tayo ipagpapalit sa kahit anuman.
Matapat at hindi magnanakaw, hindi sarili, kundi ang interes ng bayan ang inuuna.
May political will. Totoo ang serbisyo at handang ibigay ang lahat. Matugunan lamang ang mga isyu na kinakaharap at kakaharapin pa ng bansa.
Bilang botante, nasa atin ang responsibilidad na ihalal ang nararapat. Isa itong desisyon para sa nakararami kung kaya't mag-isipang mabuti.
Huwag magpadala sa kasikatan at sabi-sabi. Ikaw mismo ang kumilatis.
Tandaan, nakasalalay sa desisyon mo ang magiging kinabukasan ng bansa. Kaya, maging matalino.
Maliban sa totoo, dapat may karanasan at kapasidad na mamuno.
Hindi ka mabibili, kaya huwag kang magpapabayad. Bigyang dangan ang iyong boto.
Katuwang nyo ang Smni sa isang malinis at patas na eleksyon. Dahil dito, siguradong balitang totoo.
Ibibigay namin sa inyo mga impormasyong tama. Tuloy ang pagbabago kahit sa pagbabalita.
Sama-sama po tayo tungo sa bagong bansa. Piliin ang magpapatuloy sa mga programang nasimulan ng administrasyon.
Ituloy.
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 Ituloy. Ituloy. Ituloy. Ituloy.
Ituloy.
Ituloy.
Ituloy. Ituloy.
Ituloy ang pagbabago.
Pagod ka na ba? Pahinga ka muna. Sige lang, hinga lang ng malalim. Palipasin muna ang dilim. Mag-ipon ka muna ng lakas. Dahil sasabak ka na naman bukas, ituloy mo lang ang laban. Kahit dahan-dahan, ituloy lang ang laban. Kahit mabagal, huwag kalimutang magdasal. Huwag kang susuko, huwag kang hihinto. Kita-kita tayo hanggang sa dulo. Kayang-kaya natin ito ipanalo.
Maraming beses na tayong nasaktan, binigo, nalagay sa alanganin. Minsan nang nagdalawang isip kung itutuloy pa ba natin ang nasimulang laban. Dahil tao tayo, madalas nagkakamali, nagbabago, nangangarap, natatalo, nagtatagumpay. Iba-iba ang paniniwala, kaya madalas may mga di pagkakaintindihan. Sa panahon ng pangangailangan, lumalabas ang totoong tayo. Mapagmahal, puno ng malasakit, nabubuo, mas humihigpit ang kapit natin sa bawat isa. Dahil alam natin na kung sabay, lahat nagiging posible.
Sa muling pagsikat ng araw, isang desisyon ang kailangan mong pakawalan.
Nagbabalik po ang The Deep Probe, the SMNI Presidential Candidates Interview. At para po patuloy nating makilala ang presidential candidate na si Secretary Ernie Isabela, itutuloy po ng ating panelists ang kanilang mga katanungan.
Secretary?
Yes.
You've mentioned agriculture in your platform. In fact, the term you use is you want to make agriculture a mega industry.
Yes.
there are a lot of problems in agriculture, among which more than half of the Filipinos live in rural areas, and yet the sector only contributes a little over 9% to GDP. Could you flesh out or give us details about what you have in mind when you say you want agriculture to be a mega industry?
First and foremost, we want agriculture to be a mega industry. Let me address first the last part of your question, that it only contributes something like 9%. And that's not due to them. That's due to government neglect. You know? Hindi naman sinusuportahan eh. Katulad niyan sasabihin, may nakausap ako na business consultant. I'm sure if I mentioned him, you would know this person. Pero sabi niya, hindi kasi competitive yung mga natin, mga farmers natin. Paano mo naman ilalaban yan sa Vietnam tsaka sa Vietnam tsaka Thailand? Kompleto sila ng na suporta. Tayo wala. We actually, it's really a benign, I don't know if it's benign, but it's neglect. You know? So anyway, going back to that, the other part of your question, how do we want to address that?
How do you realize your vision of creating a mega agriculture industry?
Yeah, what we'd like to do first and foremost is, as soon as possible, is to create a board of agricultural investment. You know, to get people who are actually practitioners, not just experts in the trade itself, but actually those who have experience and those who have financial understanding, so that we could create, we could raise bonds, for example, so that we could use that, and also so that we can specifically create a whole ecosystem. I keep going back to this ecosystem, and address, for example, that number one problem. Why, for example, those who actually experience the worst hunger, the worst privation, and the most vulnerable are those in the agricultural sector. There is a moral component to this. For example, when we talk kung pinag-uusapan natin na lumalaki ang GDP natin, pero meron tayong 23 to 26 million na katao na mahirap. At aside from yung mahirap sila, meron pang 12.5 million people na nakakaranas ng gutom. Nakakaranas sila ng gutom. At ang isa sa mga tao na I talked with, sabi ko, he was the manager of a huge plantation in Mindanao. And sabi ko, bakit ganito ang puso mo? Sabi niya, kasi nakikita ko ang gutom ng tao. So basically, kaya natin pinapasok ito, dahil lang sa unang-una, pwede kasing mangyari na lumaki ang agrikultura pag tinutukan natin. Pangalawa, magkakaroon tayo ng genuine na industriya na pwedeng scalable. Kasi naman BPO hindi naman scalable. A lot of the MSMEs, a lot of them, I'm not just talking about the micro, I'm talking about the medium, mga traders, puro angkat. You know, the products come from China or some other areas, no? So the point is, kailangan natin ng isang industriya na scalable, na pwedeng kumita, na pwedeng bibigay ng trabaho, na ma-address yung gutom, at it can also address inflation. So, so using yung Board of Agriculture Investments, at i-connect natin, for example, i-connecta natin sa research and development para we can produce our own, from seeds to pampataba, all the way to manufacturing, all the way to post-harvest facilities, all the way to community agricultural centers, all the way to even to domestic tourism. Pwede natin sila ipagkabit. Meron tayong roadmap dyan at na tinatapos, at alam din natin kung ano pwedeng mangyari at pwedeng gawin.
Are there any other government interventions you think are necessary? Because public spending on agriculture is something like 1.7% of the entire national budget.
Correct.
Relative to the public spending of other ASEAN countries, 1.7% is actually, on agriculture, is very small.
Correct. Ang pwede kasi natin dyan, we can do a 2-3 track solution. No, one is divert some of the build, divert some of the MSMEs, and then also pwede manghiram. I keep saying that, although some candidates felt na hindi viable ang manghiram. Pero kung alam mo actually kung saan pupunta ang pera mo, pwede manghiram and dapat mga manghiram. Basta sigurado ka lang kung saan pupunta ang pera. By the way, isang problema talaga ng gobyerno is lack of absorptive capability. May pera, hindi naman alam kung paano gastuin, Basta, nakita ko ito. For example, I've been in corporate, I've been involved in corporate life, I've been involved in government life, and I tell you what, there is great efficiency in corporate life. There is a lot of in government, there's a lot of discussion of throughput, yung mga proseso. Pero at the end of the day, kulang talaga sa output. No offense meant, pero yan ang talagang nakikita ko. So kailangan talaga ng, we want to involve more people who are yun talagang may expertise at talagang may experience at alam nila yung ginagawa nila, lalo na sa agrikultura.
Last question. Sorry, I apologize my fellow panelists. You talked about integrating regional markets.
Yes.
There's been a law passed, I think 6 or 7 years ago, the cabotage law, that was supposed to liberalize the domestic shipping industry with the aim of reducing the logistics cost of bringing goods from, say, Mindanao to Luzon. And yet, 6 or 7 years after this law, it's still more expensive to bring goods from Mindanao to Manila than it is to bring goods from Mindanao, say, to Hong Kong or farther away markets. What can be done? I mean, the law is already there.
Will, I suppose. Political will. If the current administration can say, let's finish the bill, we can actually, if it's already there, we can actually implement it. Yeah, yung sinasabi yung cabotage law.